Welcome to Code 0292. My name is Lungile. In this week's episode, we'll talk about industrial attachment, the challenges that young people face during attachment, and what industrial attachment entails. With me today is Roamello Ngwenya. He is a former attache and he is going to tell us about his experiences that he went through during attachment. Welcome, Roamello, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So before we talk about attachment, maybe you can tell us more about yourself, who Roamello is.
Okay, well, I'm just another pretty boy from the humble ghetto of Pumula South. I drink drugs, I smoke alcohol, I like watching documentaries. I'm a very boring individual. Other than that, I'm an architecture student at Bulawayo Polytechnic. I'm 24 years old, going on 25. I'm a hip-hop head, a very big one. I listen to anything, but I'm a hip-hop head. And I'm a snob. People call me a snob. I don't know how far true that is, really. But it is what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah.
All right. So, as a former attache, what were your experiences like during attachment?
They were crazy and unexpected, up and down. It had its good, it had its bad, because in a college environment, you're just used to socializing with your friends 90% of the time. You can photocopy another guy's assignment and get away with it. At work, when you're on attachment, it's a totally different story, because boss is going to walk in and say, "This is a serious job. I need this done by Friday," and it's a Wednesday. So when you're a student, you get frazzled, you start panicking, because this is your first project, like, in life. Because what you do on attachment, it's literally equivalent to you being at work once you're done with college and the likes. So you tend to panic a lot, and you tend to be under a lot of pressure. So genuinely, you learn how to handle pressure, and obviously with the supervisor's assistance and guidance, even though he's there for you, but there's still a lot of psychological pressure that's going to, entrap you, because it's a new thing, it's a new experience. One tiny mistake, everything can fall off, So sometimes you just have to try to keep your head above water, but experience-wise, it's how to handle the pressure, most importantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So what I already jumped into the experiences, but maybe let's just go back and talk about actually finding attachment,
Okay.
getting a place to be attached at.
Yeah.
And in our country where jobs are very scant,
True.
How did you manage? Or maybe I can point it out there to the people, like how do you think young people manage to get attachment? Is it really available, or
if you're lucky, it genuinely depends on your field of study. I'm studying architecture, right? So at the moment, according to the last piece of information I heard, there's a total of 67 registered architects in Zimbabwe. And the number of architectural firms that are grounded in Bulawayo specifically, there's about 3. There's Chitima Architects, there's Professional Studios, and there's HBN Smeller. And unfortunately, the registered architect, Mr. Chitima, from Chitima Architects, he passed away recently. So I'm still not familiar with how exactly they're going to sort that issue out, but those were the 3 main firms in Bulawayo. And it was very hard, because I went to all 3 of those firms and they told me they didn't have a place. And I had to chill at home for a while, and hoping that my luck might pull through somehow, some way. So I almost gave up, until one day I was just taking a stroll through town, 13th Avenue. I won't mention the street though, but way out of town. And I just saw the logo of the company. It's not It's not an architecture firm, it's a construction company, but architecture is one of the things that they do. And I was like, oh, okay, let me jump in and try my luck. And thank God, I don't know, like, the universe smiled upon me on that day. And he was like, very, very kind enough to grant me a place.
Okay.
So finding attachment is very difficult. But for architecture students, they stand a chance in finding attachment in Harare, because that's where most of the architecture firms are. They're there in every other city, but in every other city you most likely find just one. But most of them are in Harare. And I couldn't go to Harare because of personal reasons that I'll keep to myself. Yeah.
All right. So from what you're saying, attachment is really hard to find.
It depends on your field of study.
Depends on your field of study.
Yes.
But then can we also say that once young people, once students get attachment, sometimes they become so desperate, because you said that it took you a very long time to actually get attachment.
Yeah.
And you're given a period of time.
Yes.
For your attachment period.
Yes.
In college.
Yeah.
So sometimes I find that young people actually end up looking for anything as long as they are on attachment.
Yeah.
And the skills that they acquire from that attachment, they won't be the skills that they would be majoring in college.
Exactly.
So
yes.
at the end of the day, it becomes difficult for them to actually practice what they actually learned in college. Is that what you also faced since you were in a construction company?
To a greater extent, no. To a lesser extent, yes. Because I still managed to do the architecture stuff I learned in college, but everything else with to do with construction also landed on my plate. Take, for instance, how to quantify buildings. Not only was I tasked to draw buildings, I was also tasked to quantify how many bricks will it take, how many bags of cement, how much volume of, quarry stone, river sand, all that type of stuff, of which in the as an aspiring architect, that's literally not my job at all. That's a quantity surveyor's job. But to a greater extent, I'm grateful that I learned some of those skills, because at least in the event that I draw a plan and I give the job to a quantity surveyor, at least I have a brief idea of what exactly is supposed to be done, so that he doesn't sidetrack me. Trust me, that happens a lot, especially in construction. Okay, so I feel like a lot of skills that I don't major in, they were, put upon me. And as far as the architecture aspect of it, I learned everything that I needed to learn. It was very hard to learn at first, but eventually I got, to get the hang of it. But it's a very common thing to be given things that you don't necessarily major in, especially when you're in a desperate situation and you just want to see yourself on attachment. You don't care what you're going to learn. You don't care what's being given to you. As long as you're on attachment, as long as you have something to write in your logbook for that period of time, it's okay. So it can affect the curriculum as to what exactly you learn while you're in the field.
Yeah, so how do you think that actually affects young people when they now prepare themselves into, after college, when they prepare themselves after college, how does that affect them, knowing that they have acquired they have finished their attachment period and they're now on their last year, but the skills that they got, they are not the skills that they're supposed to get? How does that affect them? Let's
see, it can be positive and it can be negative. From my experience, it was a positive. I now know how to quantify a plan, a small plan though, not those really big projects. I think quantity surveyors will have to handle those ones. But for me, it was positive to a certain extent, because take, for instance, when you're given like a plan, right? It not only shows you where each room is, it also shows you like the drainage system and the likes. And usually calculating the connections of drains and the likes, that's a mechanical engineer's job. I was taught a brief on how exactly to calculate most of that stuff. So it was a positive to a great extent, because, the Bulawayo City Council is very strict on some of those details, in which the person who's drawing the plan is supposed to provide those details. So I'm supposed to know that. I don't know any mechanical engineers, at least not yet. So at least at the moment, it affected me positively. But it can also affect you negatively, because what if you are learning something that really doesn't even matter in your field? Because if you're a quantity surveyor and you're in a construction company and you're taught things that have got nothing to do with quantity surveying, it's going to be very difficult for you, because imagine once you're done with college, you go to a construction firm, you give them your CV. I have a national diploma from Bulawayo Polytechnic in quantity surveying. They'll be like, okay, looks like this person fits the bill. They take you in. When you're in the field now, when they put you in the office and they see something totally different, it can get very, very difficult for you, because you learned the wrong skills, you see. So we live in an era where the skills are far much more important than the paper. So in the event that you have the wrong skills but the right piece of paper, it's not going to look good for you. Yeah, the construction industry is too small and names travel very fast. Yeah, so it's going to be very difficult in the event that you have the wrong skills but the right piece of paper.
All right, so let's talk about skills.
Yeah.
In college, where you mentioned that in every college people are taught theoretical, and then there's a bit of practical, but it's mostly theory, taught in theory.
Yeah.
So how does that actually prepare someone to go on attachment if you're just taught theory, and then now you have to apply that theory in practical, and some of the things that you learn, some of the books that you read, probably they are from 1960 or whatever, and you need to apply those skills, that theory into practice. How does your college actually prepare you, or how does college and the lecturers and everyone who teaches you prepare you to make sure that the theory that you learn suffices you to actually attain the skills, or to, yeah?
Well, I won't say it's only my college. I've actually heard a number of reviews from people from other colleges. It's kind of like theory as they most possibly can. And sometimes during lectures, they'll be kind enough to share you some bits and pieces of advice that, for example, like a lecture that I had last week, like the lecturer was like, guys, let me tell you something. You know, at that company, they work like this and like that and like this and like that. So it simply means that during each and every lecture, you need to pay as much attention as you most possibly can. Plus, the option for you to go to these lecturers to ask them what exactly is expected of you, that option is also there. Plus, you're also looking at students, like, you know, students that are coming from attachment are always there every year. You have the option to approach them as well. But in the event that those options weren't there, it's literally you just having that theory. And also as a student, you have to be intelligent enough to be responsible. And I believe you're supposed to do as much research as you can, because we all know for a fact that, you know, the education system needs a little bit of upgrading in certain areas, especially in tertiary education. So it's up to the student as well to do as much research as they most possibly can to find out what exactly happens on the practical side of it, because we all know that theoretical knowledge is totally different from practical execution. So I feel like college, let me just say, it preps you the best way it can. Yeah, they don't prepare you fully to the 100% degree that they are supposed to, but they prepare you as much as they can. So I always take it with a grain of salt to say, you know what, it's better than nothing. Yeah, at least I know something from that was relevant 50 years ago, but it's still better than nothing. Yeah, so be responsible and do some research on your own, but that's how it all goes.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about the challenges that actually young people face during attachment. You know, you've got that mentality where, as a young person, I'm finishing my second year, I'm done with my second year, and I'm now moving on to attachment year. I'm going to be the working class, part of the working class. I'm going to be having money. I'm going to be buying new clothes. I'm going to be able to be paying my fees. You know, there are all of those things that come into one person's mind.
Exactly, yeah.
But then when you get into attachment, you find that, oh, okay, fine, this is the reality.
Exactly.
So maybe I've mentioned some of the challenges, but what are the challenges that you went through, or some of your friends went through during attachment?
Okay, well, the first challenge is, first and foremost, the difficulty to catch on to the work, because it's not a college environment. It's a totally different environment. And, you know, 50 years of psychological research will tell you that it's quite difficult to evolve in new environments. So that's the first thing. So when you're in a new environment, it's typically hard for you to climatize to whatever is within that environment. So in the event that someone walks in and gives you a job to do, you'll be like, okay, this is a job. Okay, so like that's the first challenge. It's a minor one, but you get over it eventually. The second one would be money, of course, because if you're very lucky, you will find a firm that will pay you. If you're not, you won't. Therefore, if you're from a polytechnic like I am, you'll be depending on the ZimDef allowance. And the funny part about it is that it doesn't come every month, so to speak. The whole amount will definitely come, but not in the interim that you expect. Because I remember when I started working, first 2 months nothing was there. I saw my first payment on the third month, and then from there maybe skipped a couple of months or so, but eventually the whole amount I got it. So in the event that you're working in a city that is, that you're not familiar with, you have to rent, you have to buy groceries, everything that, a bachelor individual should do. And, that $100 might not be enough, especially recently because of the crisis that happened. That $100 was literally not enough for you to rent out, for you to buy groceries or anything of the sorts. There's also transport issues, right? That's one of the challenges, the money. So in the event that you have a firm that will pay you, you're super lucky. If you don't find a firm that'll pay you, you have to make a plan somehow. It's either you move or you fight, the urge to quit. And it's always up to you. Another challenge maybe would be fulfilling everything that is stipulated within your curriculum. Most construction companies or architecture companies, they don't teach you everything. Like sometimes when you're going on attachment, you have a logbook that states you're supposed to learn this, that. And there are instances whereby you will end up finishing your whole attachment without learning some of those things. Some of those things may be important, some of those things may not be, but finishing the whole curriculum during attachment can be extremely difficult. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also depends on the firm. Firm politics, the company that you're working in, it can be a friendly one, it can be a very bossy one, even the workload. Like I have some homies of mine who told me that at a certain point, they knocked off at 3 a.m. And that's crazy because my boss always told me to go home at 5. He was only like, at 10 o'clock, you're supposed to have your tea. It's break time. You can't sit in the office all day. 5 p.m., you're getting out of this office. Unless, of course, there was a job that needed to be finished on that particular day. That's when we would push it up until maybe latest 6 p.m. But when I heard that they knocked off at 3 a.m., I was like starstruck. I was like, what? Like, who does that, But I wasn't necessarily surprised because, in our profession, 0 nights are to be expected most of the time. And that's how, crazy the workload is, especially in architecture. So those are some of the challenges that you may face. And there are unique challenges that you as a person yourself can face, but those are typically the general ones. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and let's talk about innovation.
Okay.
As a young person, you go out there and you are expected to be someone who is spot on, who's bringing up new ideas and things like that.
Yeah.
So as a former attache, do you think that organizations actually give students room for them to grow and to be as innovative as possible?
Again, it also depends with the firm. Luckily, in the company I was working in, they allowed me the opportunity to bring in ideas. Of course, most of them were shot down because, I was still learning and he showed me the flaw in most of those ideas. But as far as innovation is concerned, yes, the opportunity to grow intellectually and creatively, it's always there. It would be a crime for any firm to prevent us from innovating. But how, especially in this generation, I don't know what exactly I should call it, but there's always that syndrome by most of the, the experienced guys where they look down upon you because, you're still new to the game. And we have to give them credit, they have the necessary experience, but at a certain point you have to pass the torch on to someone. But the challenge you can face, particularly in as far as innovation, is you can be underestimated, you can be looked down upon, and they may not take your ideas seriously sometimes. But the opportunity to grow is always there. Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with the work that is given to you. It can also be like, pointers that you can take and keep to yourself. Because when you're in attachment, at least this is what me and my homies were doing, we took that as an opportunity to try to upgrade our portfolios. Because once we leave college, we need, these bodies of work to show to potential employers. So innovation, it can happen with or without the firm. But within the firm, at least where I was working, I was always given the opportunity to give in new ideas. Yeah.
All right. So you're done with attachment. You're going back to school.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the things that you actually learned from your attachment can be applied back at school? Do you feel like you've grown, or there's a bit that you need to do? Do you need to go back and learn more?
Yeah, I think I'd like to go back and learn a little more, just a little more. But have I grown? Yes, both as a student and as a person, because I didn't only learn architecture stuff. I learned ethics. I learned, what can I say, like intelligence, like how to approach a client, how to talk to people, how to be a better person. My boss is a hardcore Christian. He's a preacher. I think he told me that, So he taught me a lot of things, both in the architecture field and in just a personal development perspective. But I feel like, I'll be honest, there are a few things that I felt like were lacking a little bit. So in the event that the opportunity ever comes up, and I would like to actually go back there, maybe just a little bit more, so that I tell them, like, I feel like I need to learn this before I actually decide to go out. Yeah, so there's always that opportunity to go back if your boss is courteous enough to do that. Thankfully, he did give me that opportunity. Yeah, so in the event that I want to go back, I can.
All right. Okay, so thank you, Roamello, for coming to our show.
Oh, that was fast.
It was.
Okay. I know. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming to the show.
All right.
And thank you for watching Code 0292. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Center for Innovation in Technology, and also follow us on Twitter at CycerW. From me, Lungile, it's bye for now. See you next week.